How'd you get into shadow work?
Well, I was involved in the Mankind Project. I had done the new Warrior Training Adventure Weekend that I know you're familiar with.
Yeah.
And a guy that was a leader in the Mankind Project was offering to a shadow work weekend. And this was in 2013. They were running it in Dallas, he and his wife. And somebody that I knew said, "You should come and try this out."
Fell for you.
And I had been involved in the Mankind Project for about 3 years at that time. And so I said, "Sure, I'll go." And my partner and I went and attended that weekend. And I was facilitated by this couple through a process. And I was just blown away. And not only was I able to connect and clear up some stuff inside of myself that really needed to be cleared up, but I was just so blown away by the quality and sharpness of their facilitation. It was like a scalpel that they used in the way that they were using language to help me see things that I wasn't able to see. And I was just so excited about it. I was like, that was the coolest thing ever. And then about 5 or 6 months later, somebody said they're running a basic facilitator training for shadow work in Dallas. And I was like, I'm going to that. I need to go and learn how to do some of that because I just was so impressed with it. So my partner and I went and attended that basic facilitator training, and I was hooked.
You're hooked.
I was hooked.
How long ago was that?
That was in 2014. So I did the weekend in August of 2013 as an attendee. And then we did that basic facilitator training in March of 2014. Yeah. It was a difficult week, actually, because my stepbrother died suddenly of a heart attack on Wednesday, March 19th. And 3 days later, I was scheduled to attend that training, and I went to the training. And it turned out to be the best thing I could have done because I was really supported at a time where it was important to have good support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And then the week afterwards, I went back to Boston, which is where I'm from, to attend to that situation.
Right.
Yeah.
What was your background prior to shadow work facilitation?
I was a software services consultant
Okay.
and I had gotten into software when I was 25 years old back in 1989. I had worked for a couple of different software companies. And then after that, I moved into consulting, software services consulting. And so at that time in 2013, I was a shareholder in a small boutique software services company based in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
And I was traveling around the country leading teams of developers implementing software for Fortune 2000 companies. So big companies.
Yeah.
And implementing software.
Wow.
And getting bored with it already by that point. Yeah. Actually had been in a spot much earlier where I was like, how do I get out of this and do something that feels more, especially since I'd been doing my personal development work. Anyway, before the Mankind Project, I was involved in another training called Pathways Core Training that was created by Dr. Phil McGraw from the Dr. Phil Show.
Oh, okay. I didn't know he had something like that.
It's co-gender training that took place in Dallas, and it was an intensive training. And I was exposed to that at 38 years old back in 2001. And that was when I first kind of got connected to this idea of, wait a minute, I can learn about myself. Oh, I have emotions and I can feel them. Because I remember zipping up my emotions like around 12 or 13 years old because it was not okay to cry.
Yeah.
And then at 38, it was like I had a full sob for the first time since I was 12 or 13 years of age because of that work. And that's what hooked me I started to feel myself again. I started to get into my body.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm
tapping into
diverging
emotions.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds beautiful.
So that was the first. For shadow work itself, I had already been involved in doing personal development work. I was working as a software services consultant, which used my brain a lot. Really required me to work with people and lead people and lead my teams and client teams and to facilitate. But to facilitate, how do we develop the solution that's right for them? But then I saw this opportunity to learn how to facilitate helping people get what they wanted, what they really wanted, and that's what hooked me there.
Yeah. There's a lot of success throughout your life.
Interestingly, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was successful. I've been successful. Yeah.
I mean, getting into software at that age, I mean, software's just gotten more and more prevalent in our culture, our society, and has been more and more important for business.
No question.
So investing in that at a young age was probably I don't know that it was smart, but it was definitely fortunate.
Yeah, it was an that journey. And you may ask me about this later on, but I was in the restaurant business at a young age, at 15.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was 22 and got to be a manager, assistant manager of a fine dining restaurant that I realized that's a dead end for me. Because I saw people who were 50 years old waiting tables and miserable.
Yeah.
And management in the restaurant business is not any better than that. So I decided to go to college late, like at 21. And I was in college and I said, I need to get some experience in software. So I went to the counselor and said, can you help me get into a company somewhere? And I talked myself into an entry-level job, and the rest is history around that. So software services has been very good to me.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining, but right around that time that I came into shadow work and I started to learn about shadow work was the time where I was like, how do I get out of this? Because it's not interesting to me, the software side.
Yeah. We've got a lot in common. I worked in restaurants through college.
Yeah.
And when I was 15, I had a job as a dishwasher at a country club. And when I finished my career in restaurant, I'd done pretty much everything there was to do in a restaurant, but I was a business manager for a fine dining restaurant. And I just thought, man, this isn't for me.
Yep.
The culture, not to say anything wrong or bad about folks that work in the service industry, but there was a culture, there was a lot of drug and alcohol use. There was a lot of, I think companies working folks kind of past their comfort zone, getting as many hours out of them as they could.
A lot of doubles.
Beyond the contracted, hourly thing. And it wasn't until I had my kiddos and got a divorce that I started really getting into software. But then I was in software for 10 years, worked my way up and taught myself from just getting any job I could get at a software company and losing them and getting a better one and then losing it and then getting a better one. But I often joke around that I failed my way to a pretty high position as a senior software engineer at Cisco was my last role.
Very familiar with them.
And it was really good to me.
Yeah.
But there's a big but. It wasn't feeding my soul. It wasn't feeding... I don't think it created a human being that could connect with my daughters and model for them what I wanted to model for them and model for other people. And they led to kind of mental health breakdowns. I had multiple ones where I'd be on short-term disability for like long periods where I was navigating kind of the fallout from those roles. Not only the roles, things that were going on in my life too, but it just seemed like they weren't a steady leg in my life, a foundational pillar.
It seemed for me that there was always the energy of chasing the dollar in that world, because that's what everybody around me was doing. Yeah. So I was in a space, and for a while I was good at that. I chased the dollar and did a good job. Yeah. And so that there was the satisfaction of that aspect of it. Like, it was nice to make a lot of money. And it did not take long for it to become an empty chase. And I suspect you had this, that's exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to have...
So we're brethren.
We're brethren. Yeah, for sure. It's interesting how closely restaurant, software, and then now a serious journey
Did you ever complete a bachelor's degree in college?
I did. I
Yeah.
got it in radio, television, and film, which is, I returned to
now what you're doing.
that passion and that love of radio, television, and film here with this project.
Yeah. I ended up not completing my bachelor's program because I got that job after about 3 years of study as a software telephone tech support guy back in '89. And pretty quickly realized that I was learning way more in my job than I was learning at school.
Yeah.
And school was technologically 3 or 4 years behind.
Yep.
And so I made a conscious choice to take a semester off. And when I did, I just never went back.
Yeah.
And I made a really good living for a long time.
Yeah.
Without that bachelor's degree.